It's a phrase we've probably heard too many times before. It's pretty easy to take a whole bunch of ingredients, chop them up, cook them in a bowl, and have soup. How do you then take that soup and turn them back into ingredients? I'm Borkowski, and today I want to spend just a little bit of time talking to you about why a perceived reboot for the Xbox identity won't actually help them with their core systemic problems. If you don't know anything that I'm talking about, it just happened this week. Xbox boss himself, Phil Spencer, at the DICE Summit, took some time to address the crowd and talk about how Xbox as a company, and also Microsoft, was going to be pushed in the 21st century. Specifically,
world building makes our world understandable and makes stories feel real and grounded. To paraphrase writer Chuck Wendig, good world building starts with the story, but epic world building serves the story. It's everything. It's so much more than constructing the landscape and buildings, so much more than concept to final script. It's language, politics, traditions, it's faith, it's laws, it's customs, it's race and ethnicity, it's gender, it's relationships, it's the rules of magic. It is lore. In short, it is everything that makes up a society.
Spencer goes on then to say that every single time in a video game we've upended a stereotype, we've begged the question as a company, why can't this be like this in the real world? As a result, Phil and members of the Xbox team will now be pushing to make sure that different sorts of voices from different sorts of people are part of the management cycle. They're making choices that will affect the products going forward. He used the term reboot as a very important term for where Xbox is going. On its face, this makes a lot of sense. It's what we've talked about in the past. As long as you have different people in a boardroom, you will actually create a different sort of experience. I don't know what it's like to be a queer person, and I think that someone who does might be more informed of how to make games that speak truth to that experience. I don't think Ron Howard should have directed Black Panther. It's okay to have these sort of distinctions. But the reason why Xbox is doing it now and not addressing some of the core systemic problems, I think, is because these core problems make Xbox what it is. If we look at the Xbox identity, it's something that a lot of corporate interests like to deal with, of how the public sees different sort of brands and how they operate in the world. Xbox very early on carved out a niche, and you'll forgive me for using this language, as the bro place. The place where casual gamers, more aggressive, more traditionally masculine, maybe stereotypically stupid gamers could gather together and play games that serve that community. Whether that was intentional or not, it happened. Let's look at some of the basic pillars of what makes the Xbox identity what it is today. I think it's fair to say the most iconic character that's ever been on a screen associated with that magic green X is Master Chief in the Halo franchise. This represents a very traditional, archetypical way that games are told. One masculine character needing to save all the damsels in distress. It's a very traditional way of looking at games, and it's worked. It's been fundamentally great. PlayStation had God of War that filled a similar purpose. If we look at what PlayStation has done now and made the changes to where we hope God of War will go, where it's adapted that dynamic to be more about family, about understanding the vulnerability of these characters. Halo Chief hasn't done that. And for every Halo Chief that we have on Xbox, on Sony we have Aloys. We have character from Horizon Zero Dawn that exudes femininity, that represents that maternal struggle. We don't really have that for Xbox. So very early on, this was advertised in a way that was meant to appeal to one sort of story being told. They're working to change that. That's great. Something they're not working to change, though, at least ostensibly, is how these games are advertised. If you ever have the unfortunate peril of seeing a commercial for an Xbox game, it is rough. They appeal to the lowest common denominator. It is all about big bros and explosions. And it just doesn't really speak to the idea that this is a nuanced art form that's being created by a lot of people. And that's okay for that particular brand. If that works for them, it's what's been able to propel them to the level of success they have now. Maybe not as directly if you even look at the UI that has compromised Xbox controllers and consoles for the last few years. It is inherently masculine. It's big, it's black, it's green. It is your mammoth e-penis that you have with your Duke controller, ensuring that it shows your masculinity. There isn't a sleek style. It's Microsoft to Apple. It's Xbox to PlayStation. Whereas Xbox really represented a sort of all-American brand. You know, it's created right here. It was a proponent of what Microsoft was. PlayStation and Nintendo more represented a foreign Japanese sensibility, and that really conveyed itself in the design of the UI and the consoles themselves. So traditionally, it's been one way. They're trying to make changes. We'll see if that's actually successful. But I think the most important reason that these changes in this reboot won't have a success is because Xbox very early on represented itself as the game that gamers go to play online. Very early on, you understood that you played Xbox games with other people online. It was part of the market strategy. The same company didn't make strong enough efforts early on to distance themselves from the evils that have to do with gamer community, or what we call gamer identity now. It's so subsumed in this idea that this is the place where we play and anything's allowed. It's important that there is masculinity. There's swatting events. It represents maybe the worst parts of connecting people. I liken it to a corporation like Twitter not making the changes to get rid of the trolls and the hate mongers because they'd be losing a quarter up to half of their population. Xbox as a company, if they made these changes, where they adapted the Halo storytelling techniques to maybe follow something similar to God of War, if they deliberately and extensively changed their marketing campaigns so that it wasn't so much focused on this very traditional old way of marketing to people like me, and if they really made the strictest changes to the online markets so that they told people that, simply put, this sort of obscenity, this sort of hate won't be permitted in a real way. Not basic bans, not basic censorships, but a complete upend from bottom to top. If they did all of that and endorsed new different voices that are making different games, that's an incredible change. Absolutely. That's a real reboot. What are we getting now, though? We're getting a headline from multimillionaires putting other multimillionaires that happen to be of different ethnicities in control of a company while not making any changes that could possibly hurt the bottom line. So ultimately, if you're an Xbox fan and you're worried that these libtards are going to change the dynamic and your Halo won't be the same, don't worry, it will still be chauvinistic. It still won't strive to the heights of storytelling. If maybe you want Xbox to change, I don't think a reboot is how it's done. I think they need to truly upend the system from bottom to top, and I don't see that happening. I'm Andy Borkowski for VGS. You know, if you identify of any of these Xbox gamers or any sort of subculture within gaming, I really want to know what you think about this, because again, this is someone looking in that's identified as an Xbox gamer for a long time. Asking around, when you think about an Xbox gamer, at least from the people working here, it's always been somewhat broy. It's always been a little bit more intense and not really open. We don't know if that'll change, but I don't think this one step in the right direction will make that change anytime soon.